So, here we are, tasting wine with Pete and Dave.
G'day mate, what have we got? An interesting lineup again?
Yeah, well there is an interesting lineup. Before we get started, I always like to give a little bit of a tidbit of information. I'm going to the Wine Awards this week.
Oh, the National Wine Show.
Oh, yeah,
yes. Well, I'll see you there, so that's
great.
Going to be good, yeah.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. It will be a lot of fun, yes. And we can report on it next week.
We can.
All right, first thing we're trying here, Pete, is this is a Prosecco.
Okay.
Italian bubbles. Now, it's made in the same style as a Method Champenoise, my understanding is.
Yeah.
And it's definitely Italian. This is a non-vintage, so
but this is made by Brown Brothers, though.
And it's made by Brown Brothers,
okay.
yeah.
So that's interesting in the sense that, Brown Brothers, like they did with a lot of other things, Brown Brothers, very innovative, family-owned company, and they essentially popularised the concept of Prosecco in Australia. They sort of got in there and marketed it, and the first one they made was actually a vintage Prosecco that they really did in very limited numbers and more or less only through their cellar door. This is a non-vintage, which is pretty widely available, I think, these days. But Brown Brothers, as they are in a lot of other ways, ahead of the game, and they were the first guys on the block, if you like, to
nothing really big that stands out in this wine to me. It's a little bit subtle on the nose. But then I understand, being something Italian, I think you've referred to this in the past, they don't want anything to get in the way of their food.
No, that's very true, yeah. Well, particularly with the white wines, this obviously being fizz, but it's designed as an aperitif style of a drink, and it's very popular in Italy and across Europe for that purpose, if you like. So.
I get a little bit of a grassiness on the palate, maybe a little bit of pear juice, and there's just a little bit of a sweetness, but kind of the sweetness that you'd get in a kind of a pear juice rather than a sugar sweet.
Exactly. I think it's what I like to refer to as grape sweetness rather than sugar sweet. It's not an overt sweetness. It's maybe just there, as you often find in bubbly, including in the top champagne, where they put a little bit in there to just knock the rough edges off it, and so that it doesn't seem to be just screamingly high acid. In champagne, if you don't have that dosage, as they call it, you'll often end up with a really the palate is so racy, if you like, that it's just all acid, and that's a bit of a problem a lot of the time. People say we don't want anything, we want it to be bone dry, we don't want any sugar, but if you don't have that, then sometimes it makes it virtually unpalatable.
A lot of bubbles, a lot of
very effervescent, very clean, very fresh, very well made. I mean, these guys don't miss a beat normally, and that's a good drink, well made, and it would be a really terrific aperitif style, and particularly if you're going out for dinner in an Italian restaurant. Yeah.
I could see that with finger foods and that sort of thing at a summer barbecue.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Really easy. So, now this next one, Pete, I'm really excited about this. This is the St. Clair Mara Sauvignon Blanc, 2012.
Right. Okay.
Now, this should be a big Sauvignon Blanc. It's been a while since I've tasted this, back in my New Zealand days, and it was good then. Now, that one's got some medals on it, too.
Oh, yes.
Winery of the Year.
Don't know which competition that was, but in any case, they do a good job, these folks.
Summer Wine Awards, 2012. Yeah.
Well, St. Clair actually makes a lot of Sauvignon Blanc. It's really interesting. I mean, we've just got this one here, which is effectively, for want of a better word, their entry-level wine. They do a whole bunch of different ones. They've got different blocks and different sort of Sauvignon Blancs. There's about half a dozen, and with quite interesting labels too, that are a little bit more upmarket. So they really do take Sauvignon Blanc seriously as a style. Lots of different parcels of fruit. When you look at this, I mean, on the nose, you're getting really bright, ripe fruit. Like there's a lot of the, I guess, bog standard Savies that you see these days that are just a bit thin, a bit green, a bit weedy. This is
big,
really
round
voluptuous.
Fruit.
It really jumps out of the glass at you.
Absolutely. There's that traditional passion fruit.
Yep. You always get passion fruit, tropical fruit.
They say on the back label there, they say it's got a hint of gooseberry. Well, I think the hint smacks you in the face.
I was going to say it's a pretty big hint. Yeah. Well, see, gooseberry, because you're thinking ripe fruit character, and I mean, I often find that with the lesser wines or the mass-produced wines that, and you're getting a lot of that coming out of Marlborough now, where there's just so much of it coming because it's a license to print money. You're getting lantana leaf characters and thin, grassy sort of characters.
Black currant, even on that one, which is something a little bit unusual. I haven't had a Sauvignon Blanc that's that big and round.
Well, it's properly ripe fruit, and it's quite opulent. And
absolutely.
You don't see as much of it as you'd like to see. You know, that's a wine that could comfortably sell for $20 or more. Usually sells for quite a bit less.
Yeah.
But it's an upmarket Sauvignon Blanc. It's one of the better ones, and yeah, really nice, rich fruit. All the things that made Marlborough famous for Sauvignon Blanc, but you don't see it as often as you'd like to these days.
That's a good drop.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Wow. Good one. Keeps reminding me why I like those New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. All right, next one we've got
And I thought
here.
it was just because you spent so much time there.
Or because I'm a wine snob.
Yeah, and that's obviously what it is. Yeah.
All right, we've got the Coldstream Hills. This is the Yarra Valley Chardonnay 2012.
Okay. Well, another very consistent maker. An interesting thing, most Australian wine people would probably know that this was the winery established by James Halliday back in the day. Back in the 1980s, the wine scribe who is the self-appointed wine god of Australian wine writing, James Halliday. Well, this is his label that he started.
Wow,
I think he still has a bit of a consultancy role in inverted commas. That's pretty young, but you're getting all the essential Chardonnay varietal character on the nose of that.
Yeah, on the palate as well. Wow. There's some really nice oak. There's nice acid there that's really well balanced. Beautiful fruit.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lovely, lovely Chardonnay.
Yeah, a classic line that we often use. It's got everything you want and nothing you don't want. It's got all the character, plenty of oak in there, but it's not overdone. Nice acid across the palate, but it's not overdone. There's
the fruit's still crossing the palate.
Yeah, the Malo character's there, the creaminess, but it's not overdone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well balanced. It's a good drink, and it'll get better as well. Only trouble is that most of it will get drunk in the next 6 months, and then we'll be probably on to 2013. But if
I think that would sell her quite well too.
It would, yeah. Yes. It's got the balance to keep, which is the key word in any wine. If you want to keep it, it's got to have balance, and it's got everything you want in it. So
beautiful.
But I think it'll all get drunk before it reaches its prime.
All right. Next one we've got. Now this is interesting. I do enjoy my American Zinfandels, and I do enjoy the Primitivo grape variety from Italy.
Yeah.
And this is a McLaren Vale.
A Primitivo from McLaren Vale.
Kangarilla
Road?
Kangarilla Road. Yeah, Primitivo, 2012.
Yeah. These guys, not that you'd know it unless you were a viticulturist, but that leaf is apparently what a Zinfandel or a Primitivo leaf looks like. So,
I had a winemaker once tell me that grape leaves are a lot like people.
Oh, really?
Yes. Some have hairy backs.
Okay.
And some don't.
And did he say which ones were attractive?
Actually, when we were discussing this, I was videoing him talking about it, and he did describe which ones had hairy backs and which ones didn't.
Okay, right. And he probably said which ones he thought were attractive and which ones weren't. And why
well, he didn't go into it that far.
Oh, okay. The people or the leaves.
Wow, okay. I love this.
That's quite savoury, isn't it? Funny, you look at the colour, and it's not quite a Pinot colour, but it's certainly not a colour you would associate with a big McLaren Vale red.
Wow, this is just a luscious, beautiful, aromatic nose on that, isn't it?
Yeah, bit sweet, bit savoury, but again, no sugar. It's just the grape variety, but very appealing on the nose, and it basically screams out for food. It says, okay, you want that with a bowl of pasta with some red meat. I mean,
Now that's not as big as some of those American Zinfandels, but it's to me it's a little bit bigger than some of the Italian Primitivos, and I get that really ripe cherry flavor with this. It's just absolutely beautiful. Wine you could drink totally on its own.
You could, yeah.
But it would go with some
but it screams out for food as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tapas-y type things, Spanish type stuff as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the appealing thing there is the medium-bodied element of it, rather than the big blockbuster sort of typical Aussie red. It's not a typical McLaren Vale red in the sense that it's not Shiraz or Cabernet. And yeah, as I say, it's medium bodied, it's fragrant. It's
what's the alcohol in that? That's 14%.
14. Well, there you go. See, the Napa Valley's ins, the California's ins, quite often hit 16.
15, 16, yeah.
So 14 is sort of keeping it all in check a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so perhaps Australia meets the old world in a sense, you know, the McLaren Vale sort of region.
A little bit in between, isn't it? Next one we've got, this is the Lincolnfield Coonawarra 2011 Cabernet.
Okay. So straight away we start to think, alarm bells, 2011.
Yeah.
Let's see what we get.
It's nice dark fruit, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. We'll see. There's the colour of that. That's got that sort of you know, opaque, you know, can't see through it type look about it, as opposed to the previous one, the Zinfandel, that you could see through, or the Primitivo. This one you can't.
I get the black currant straight away on the nose. It's lovely fruit.
It's very bright fruit. No particular indication of greenness though. I mean, as I said, alarm bells from 2011.
Yeah.
We've seen some that are more successful than others. These guys are a good winemaker. Paul Gordon, I think, is still the fellow who makes the wine at Leakenfield. Ex-Rouge Homme winemaker, big company guy who went across to Leakenfield and resuscitated their red wines.
Oh wow. That's lovely. It's got some beautiful tannin there. Probably not as what I would consider or call maybe thick and jammy as some of the previous Lincolnfields I had. But that, I suppose, is an indication of 2011. Still, everything is there. It's a beautiful wine. Very well balanced.
Yeah.
And lovely tannin.
Yeah, it's not perhaps quite as lush as maybe the 9 or the 10, but as a product of the vintage, it works very successfully. Yeah. That's a good drink. I mean, another thing that a lot of the English wine writers often talk about in reference to Bordeaux, which is where Cabernet has its ancestral home, they'll often talk about a wine like that and say, well, this is the wine to drink, for argument's sake, while you're waiting for the 2010 to come around, or the 2009. So you would put the 9 in the cellar, you put the 10 in the cellar, you drink the 11, and then you'd come back to the 10 in another 5 years when you've drunk through your case of the 11. And so in that respect, it's not a secondary wine, it's just a lighter bodied vintage, and they've done a really good job with that.
Yeah, yeah, it is a lovely wine. And the middle palate just lingers and lingers, so yeah, everything's there. That is
fine
nice.
tannin, not too stalky, not too sappy, not too green, but still distinctively Coonawarra Cabernet, so they've done a good job with that.
Yeah, yeah, lovely wine. Next one we've got here, now this is the 2010 Bin 61 Leasingham. This is from Clare Valley.
Well, famous old label, Leasingham. Gone through some tumultuous times of late.
They've been around for a while, haven't they?
They have. They were part of the Hardy's portfolio when Hardy's had control of the portfolio.
Wow.
It went through that to Constellation Wines and now Accolade and all this sort of stuff, and yeah, quite a bit of movement on the station, if you like, at Leasingham. I think the vineyards where a lot of their famous old wines were made have since been sold off. So
that's interesting on the nose. I almost get a dustiness on the nose. That's really incredible.
It's unusual character for Clare. You normally get an almost a thick, viscous, licoricey sort of profile on the nose of a Clare Shiraz. But
you know, I haven't heard this term for a while, but the first thing on my palate, I almost could imagine a sweaty saddle.
Okay.
Have you heard that term with Shirazes?
Oh, well, you do, but you don't tend to hear it in relation into the Clare Valley. It's a characteristic that was referred to often years ago with the Hunter Valley.
Yeah.
It usually implied some less than clean winemaking.
Oh, okay.
You know, people talk about Macaptans, they talk about tar, they talk about potentially Brettanomyces, the new age wine bug, and all of these things were associated in varying degrees with this concept of what we once called sweaty saddle.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't know whether there is any of that in here, but
it's got a little bit of an edge, and there's quite a bang of tannin in that wine. So not offensive. I mean, it's probably not my favorite style of Shiraz, because I do enjoy a really jammy, fruity style of Shiraz.
The lush, sweet middle palate.
Yeah. Whereas this is a little more dry.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, in saying that, I mean, you know, some of Australia's most famous Shiraz wines i.e. Penfolds Grange, are renowned for their big whack of tannin.
Yep.
So the fact that it's got a fair bit of tannin in itself is not a bad thing, but I'd be a little bit wondering though whether there's enough middle palate fruit there to be there. Like you sort of have this idea that maybe in 5 to 10 years, you know, the tannin's still going to be there, but will there be enough fruit to carry that?
Yes.
That's the only question that I have. It's really quite a big structured wine. Drinks pretty well with protein now, I would think.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be happy to have that with a big slab of steak, you know, on the barbie, medium rare steak. But in terms of, you know, the balance of the wine, I just sort of wonder whether there's going to be enough stuffing in it